Sarah Martinez always said good morning, Mr. Marcus, every day. She'd even made him a special farewell card for his retirement. Now that card sat on the bus dashboard, while Marcus could hear Sarah's screams from the car ahead. That day, school bus driver Marcus was supposed to retire, but Captain Thompson was just getting started. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we begin this powerful story, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button. These stories matter. The gentle giant, the children only knew him as the smiling Mr. Marcus. Every morning, he safely took them to school. Every afternoon, he brought them home. None of them knew he had served 25 years in Delta Force. Till that day when what happened to Sarah forced Mr. Marcus to step aside and let Captain Thompson take over. Marcus Thompson adjusted his rear-view mirror for the last time as an active school bus driver. 30 years of the same route, the same faces, the same responsibility. Tomorrow, he would wake up as a retiree. Today, he was still the guardian of Route 47. The big yellow bus groaned to life in the pre-dawn darkness of Millfield Elementary's parking lot. Marcus had been driving school bus number 23 for so long that the vehicle had become an extension of himself. Every rattle, every squeak, every quirk was as familiar as his own heartbeat. At 68 years old, Marcus still maintained the physical discipline that had made him one of the most effective operators in Delta Force history. His graying hair was cut military short, his posture remained straight, and his eyes constantly scanned his environment with the practiced awareness of someone who had spent decades in hostile territory. But to the children of Millfield, he was simply Mr. Marcus, the kindest bus driver in the district who knew every child's name, remembered their birthdays, and kept a small first aid kit under his seat for scraped knees and hurt feelings. "Morning, Mr. Marcus," 8-year-old Tommy Chin called out as he climbed aboard at the first stop. "My mom packed extra cookies. Want one?" Marcus smiled, accepting a homemade chocolate chip cookie. "You tell your mom these are the best cookies in 3 counties, Tommy. Take your seat, buckle up." This routine had played out thousands of times over the decades. Marcus knew which children needed extra encouragement to get on the bus, which ones were likely to forget their lunch money, and which ones would try to sneak homework assignments during the ride. What the children didn't know was that Marcus Thompson had once been Captain Marcus Thompson, Delta Force, with classified commendations that would remain sealed for another 20 years. He had led rescue operations in hostile territory, coordinated with international special forces, and made split-second decisions that had saved countless lives. Now his biggest decisions involved alternate routes during construction and mediating disputes over seating arrangements. Marcus preferred it that way. Route 47 wound to the suburbs of Millfield, like a carefully choreographed dance. Marcus could drive it blindfolded. Every stop sign, every speed bump, every place where children might suddenly dart into the street chasing a runaway ball. Stop number 2, the Martinez twins, always arguing about something, usually resolved by Marcus's gentle but firm intervention. Stop number 3, Kevin Walsh, whose mother worked double shifts at the hospital. The boy was often tired, and Marcus made sure he got a window seat where the morning sun might help wake him up. Stop number 4, the Henderson house, where sometimes the parents were already gone for work and 10-year-old Lisa had to get her younger brother ready for school. Marcus always waited an extra minute, watching to make sure both children made it safely to the bus. Each stop was a small responsibility, a trust placed in Marcus by parents who believed their most precious cargo was in safe hands. They had no idea how right they were. At stop number 7, something felt wrong. Marcus had developed an instinct for danger during his military years, a sixth sense that had kept him alive in Afghanistan, Iraq, and places that didn't officially exist on any mission reports. That same instinct was screaming at him now. 8-year-old Sarah Martinez wasn't at her usual spot by the mailbox. Sarah was always punctual, always ready with her backpack properly packed and her permission slip signed. Her absence was the first warning sign. Marcus waited the standard 2 minutes, then activated his hazard lights and stepped off the bus. Military training had taught him to investigate anomalies, not ignore them. "Stay in your seats, kids," he called back to the children. "I'll be right back." The Martinez house looked normal from the outside. Porch light still on from the night before, newspaper in its usual spot, car in the driveway. But Marcus noticed what others might miss. The front door was slightly ajar, and there were scuff marks in the dirt near the walkway. His military training automatically cataloged additional details. Tire tracks in the soft earth that didn't match the family car, a child's backpack lying in the bushes, and something that made his blood run cold. A small pink sneaker, the kind Sarah always wore, discarded near the street. Marcus keyed the radio to contact dispatch, but something made him pause. A black sedan was pulling away from the opposite end of the street, moving just fast enough to avoid drawing attention, but too fast for a residential area at this time of morning. Through the sedan's rear window, Marcus caught a glimpse of Sarah's distinctive red hair. In that instant, 30 years of careful civilian persona evaporated. Marcus Thompson, the school bus driver, stepped aside, and Captain Thompson took operational command. Marcus's mind shifted into tactical mode, processing information with a cold efficiency that had made him legendary in special operations. One child confirmed abducted. Unknown number of hostiles, estimated 2 to 3 based on vehicle capacity. Head start of approximately 60 seconds. Local law enforcement response time minimum 8 minutes. Unacceptable. Marcus returned to the bus with movements that were suddenly different, more precise, more purposeful. Several of the older children noticed a change, but couldn't articulate what they were seeing. "Kids, listen very carefully," Marcus said, his voice carrying an authority that made even the rowdiest students go quiet. "I need you to remember your home phone numbers. We're going to make some stops so you can call your parents." 9-year-old Emma raised her hand tentatively. "Mr. Marcus, is something wrong?" Marcus looked at her with eyes that had seen combat in a dozen countries. Sometimes, Emma, grown-ups have to make difficult decisions to keep children safe. Today is one of those days. He contacted dispatch with professional efficiency. Unit 23 to base. "I have a code atom on Route 47. Child appears to have been abducted from stop number 7. Black sedan, partial plate. Delta Charlie 7. Heading east on Maple Street. I am implementing emergency protocols." The dispatcher's response crackled through the radio. Unit 23, return to base immediately. Do not pursue. Law enforcement has been notified. Marcus looked at the radio for a long moment. Then he switched it off. "Mr. Marcus," Tommy said quietly, "what's a code, Adam?" Marcus was already pulling away from the curb, but not toward the school. "It's what we call it when someone tries to hurt a child, Tommy. But don't worry. Mr. Marcus is going to make sure Sarah comes home safe." What Marcus didn't tell them was that Captain Thompson had never failed a rescue mission. Marcus executed a U-turn that would have been impossible for most school bus drivers, but came naturally to someone who had once driven armored vehicles through hostile territory under fire. The children gripped their seats as the big yellow bus transformed from a gentle morning routine into something else entirely. "Everyone hold on," Marcus called back, his voice calm despite the circumstances. "We're going to take a different route today." Through his rear-view mirror, Marcus could see the black sedan 3 blocks ahead, moving east toward the industrial district. The kidnappers were being careful, staying within speed limits, avoiding attention. They didn't know they were being followed by someone who had spent decades tracking targets through much more difficult terrain. Marcus's tactical mind was already 3 steps ahead. The industrial district had limited exit points. Only 2 ways out, both requiring passage through choke points that could be monitored or blocked. If the kidnappers were local, they'd know the area. If they weren't, they'd rely on GPS navigation, which would route them through predictable patterns. Either way, Marcus had advantages they didn't know about. "Mr. Marcus," Lisa called from the middle of the bus. "Are we going to be late for school?" "School's canceled today, sweetheart," Marcus replied, taking a turn that normally wasn't part of Route 47. "We're going to have a different kind of day." Marcus reached under his seat and retrieved something the children had never seen before, a small black device that looked like a radio but wasn't connected to the school district's communication system. It was a military-grade GPS tracker, one of several pieces of equipment Marcus had quietly maintained just in case. He'd never imagined just in case would involve 8-year-old Sarah. The sedan was maintaining its lead, but Marcus was closing distance. The bus was larger and more conspicuous, but it was also more intimidating. Most civilian drivers got out of the way when they saw a school bus approaching. Marcus keyed his personal device, activating a frequency he hadn't used in 6 years. Alpha Base, this is Shepard. I have a situation requiring immediate backup. The response came from Colonel Jake Morrison, Marcus's former commanding officer, who now ran a private security firm. Shepard, this is Alpha Base. You're supposed to be retired. Retirement got postponed, Marcus replied grimly. I need eyes on a black sedan, partial plate Delta, Charlie 7, heading east from Millfield toward the industrial sector. They have a child. Roger, Shepard. We're tracking now. ETA for backup units is 12 minutes. Negative, Alpha Base. I can't wait 12 minutes. Child safety is compromised. There was a pause. Shepard, are you requesting permission to engage? Marcus looked in his rear-view mirror at the 23 children depending on him, then ahead at the sedan, carrying Sarah. Permission not required, Alpha Base. I'm taking command of the situation. The sedan had reached the industrial district and was taking evasive action, confirming that the kidnappers had spotted the pursuing school bus. Marcus smiled grimly. They just made their first tactical error. By running instead of maintaining their cover, they revealed they were amateurs. Professionals would have continued the facade until they reached their destination. These were opportunists, probably working a quick kidnapping for ransom scheme. That meant Sarah was valuable to them alive, which gave Marcus operational parameters to work with. Kids, Marcus announced, we're going to play a new game. It's called Command and Control. When I give you an instruction, you follow it immediately, no questions. Can everyone do that? The children nodded solemnly. They could sense this wasn't really a game, but Marcus's calm authority made them feel safe despite the unusual circumstances. Marcus guided the bus through the industrial district with tactical precision. He knew this area from his post-military years, when he'd worked briefly as a security consultant. Every warehouse, every loading dock, every potential escape route was cataloged in his memory. The sedan was heading toward Riverside Industrial Park, a sprawling complex of warehouses and manufacturing facilities. Perfect place for a handoff or a hideout. Isolated multiple buildings, limited police presence during daytime hours. Marcus made a decision that went against every safety protocol in the school district manual, but aligned perfectly with his military training. He radioed ahead to his backup units. Alpha Base, I need you to establish a perimeter around Riverside Industrial Park. Do not engage targets. Repeat, do not engage. They have a child hostage. I'm going to force them into a containment situation. Shepard, what's your plan? Marcus guided the bus into the industrial park's main entrance, maintaining visual contact with the sedan. I'm going to make them think they're trapped, force them to negotiate. They'll want to trade the child for safe passage. And then, Marcus's expression hardened. Then Captain Thompson handles the negotiation. The sedan had pulled behind Warehouse 7, thinking it was hidden from view. Marcus parked the school bus at the warehouse complex's main entrance, effectively blocking the only vehicle exit. His backup units were moving into position around the perimeter, invisible but ready. Marcus activated the bus's PA system, but instead of addressing his passengers, he spoke to the kidnappers he knew were watching. This is Captain Marcus Thompson, United States Army, retired. You have something that belongs to me. I have something you need. Specifically, your only way out of here. I propose we discuss terms. Inside the sedan, Marcus could see movement. The kidnappers were arguing, probably trying to figure out how a school bus driver had just identified himself as military and somehow trapped him in a warehouse complex. Marcus's radio crackled with an incoming transmission on the emergency frequency. One of the kidnappers had a police scanner. "Who are you?" came a nervous voice. "This is supposed to be about money." "This stopped being about money the moment you touched one of my children," Marcus replied calmly. "My name is Captain Thompson. I spent 25 years in Delta Force, specializing in hostage rescue operations. I've successfully completed 47 rescue missions without losing a single hostage. Sarah's going to be number 48. There was silence from the sedan. Marcus continued. Here's how this works. You release Sarah, unharmed, and walk away with your lives. You hurt her, and I introduce you to skills I learned in places your geography teacher never mentioned. Your choice. Marcus had learned during his military career that the most effective weapon was often psychological pressure rather than physical force. Professional kidnappers might withstand interrogation, but these amateurs were already showing signs of panic. Kids, Marcus said to his bus passengers, I need you to stay very quiet for a few minutes while Mr. Marcus talks to some people. Remember our command and control game. The children nodded, sensing the gravity of the situation, but trusting in Marcus's calm authority. Marcus keyed his radio again, addressing the kidnappers. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to show me that Sarah is unharmed. If I don't see her within that time frame, I'm going to assume she's been hurt, and my response will be comprehensive. Through his binoculars, another piece of equipment the school district definitely hadn't provided, Marcus could see the sedan's doors open. Two men got out, looking around nervously. They were young, probably in their 20s, wearing clothes that suggested desperation rather than professional criminal organization. One of them was holding a cell phone, probably hoping to call for backup or negotiate some kind of deal. The other was looking toward the warehouse entrances, trying to find an escape route that didn't exist. After 28 seconds, the sedan's rear door opened and Sarah stepped out. Marcus could see she was frightened but unharmed. The sight of her safe released a tension in his chest that he hadn't fully acknowledged. Good, Marcus transmitted. Now we can talk like civilized people. You made a mistake today, but it doesn't have to be a fatal one. Release the child. Surrender your weapons, and I guarantee your safety until law enforcement arrives. Who says we have weapons? One of the kidnappers responded. Marcus smiled without humor. Son, I can see the bulge of concealed handgun in your right jacket pocket from here. Your partner has what appears to be a knife in his left boot. Neither of you knows how to properly conceal weapons, which tells me you're amateurs. That's actually good news for everyone involved. Marcus was implementing a psychological strategy he perfected during hostage situations in Afghanistan. By demonstrating superior knowledge in maintaining calm authority, he was forcing the kidnappers to recognize their disadvantageous position without escalating to violence. Here's what's going to happen, Marcus continued over the radio. Sarah's going to walk slowly toward my bus. You're going to remain where you are. When she's safe, we'll discuss your exit strategy. How do we know you won't just have us arrested? The second kidnapper asked. Because, Marcus replied patiently, my priority is the child's safety, not your punishment. Make the right choice and you walk away. Make the wrong choice and you don't. Sarah had started walking toward the bus, her steps hesitant but determined. Marcus could see she was trying to be brave, probably remembering safety lessons from school about what to do if approached by strangers. That's it, sweetheart, Marcus said softly, though he knew she couldn't hear him. Just keep walking toward Mr. Marcus. Behind him, the children on the bus were completely silent, instinctively understanding that something important was happening. Tommy Chun had moved to a window where he could see Sarah approaching. Mr. Marcus, Tommy whispered, is Sarah okay? She's going to be fine, Tommy, Marcus replied, never taking his eyes off the situation. Mr. Marcus is going to make sure of it. Sarah was halfway to the bus when one of the kidnappers made the mistake Marcus had been expecting. The man started moving toward her, perhaps thinking he could grab her and use her as a more effective bargaining chip. That was when Captain Thompson took direct action. Marcus had anticipated the kidnapper's movement 3 seconds before it happened. Years of combat experience had taught him to read body language, to recognize the micro-expressions that preceded violent action. Children, duck down and cover your ears, Marcus commanded, his voice carrying absolute authority. The bus door opened with a hydraulic hiss, and Marcus stepped out. What the children saw was their gentle bus driver moving with sudden, fluid precision. What the kidnapper saw was a highly trained special operations veteran who had just run out of patience. Marcus covered the 50 yards to Sarah in less than 15 seconds, moving with economy and purpose. The kidnapper who had been approaching her suddenly found himself facing someone whose entire demeanor had shifted from civilian to predator. Bad choice, Marcus said quietly and struck with surgical precision. The kidnapper went down immediately, the result of a pressure point strike that Marcus had perfected during close-quarters combat training. The man wasn't seriously injured, but he would be unconscious for several minutes. The second kidnapper reached for his concealed weapon, but Marcus was already moving. 25 years of Delta Force training had made him capable of disarming opponents twice his age with weapons 10 times more dangerous than concealed handgun. The entire engagement lasted less than 30 seconds. "Sarah," Marcus said gently, kneeling down at the child's level, "are you hurt, sweetheart?" Sarah shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I want to go home, Mr. Marcus." "That's exactly where we're going," Marcus replied, lifting her easily and carrying her toward the bus. "Mr. Marcus is going to take you home right now." As they walked back to the bus, Marcus keyed his radio one final time. "Alpha Base, this is Shepard. Package is secure. Requesting local law enforcement for cleanup. 2 suspects, both neutralized, no weapons discharged." "Copy, Shepard. Outstanding work. Just like old times." Marcus smiled as he helped Sarah onto the bus. "Not quite. Alpha Base. This time I get to go home for dinner." The children on the bus erupted in questions as Marcus settled Sarah into a seat and performed a quick medical assessment. She was shaken but unharmed, more confused and traumatized. "Mr. Marcus," Emma asked, "are you really a soldier?" Marcus started the bus and began driving toward the school, where parents and law enforcement would be waiting. "I was a soldier, Emma, a long time ago, before I became your bus driver." "Were you a good soldier?" Tommy wanted to know. Marcus considered this question carefully. "I was a soldier who tried to protect people who couldn't protect themselves, just like I did today." Sarah looked up at him with wide eyes. "Thank you for saving me, Mr. Marcus." "That's what bus drivers do, sweetheart," Marcus replied. "We make sure everyone gets home safe." As they drove through Millfield toward the school, Marcus reflected on the day's events. In 6 hours, he would officially retire from his position as a school bus driver. But today had reminded him that some responsibilities never truly end. His radio crackled with updates from law enforcement. The 2 kidnappers were in custody, talking freely about their amateurish plan to grab a child for quick ransom money. They would spend years in prison, which was exactly what they deserved. More importantly, Sarah was safe, and 23 other children had learned something about courage, protection, and the fact that heroes sometimes drive school buses. Back at Millfield Elementary, the parking lot was filled with police cars, news vans, and worried parents. Marcus guided bus number 23 into its usual spot, but nothing about this arrival was usual. Principal Martinez, Sarah's aunt, was the first to reach the bus door. Her relief at seeing her niece safe was evident, but her questions for Marcus were just beginning. "Mr. Thompson," she said as children reunited with their parents, "the police are telling me some very interesting things about your background." Marcus helped the last child off the bus and locked the doors for what he knew would be the final time. "I imagine they are, Mrs. Martinez." "Delta Force, Marcus. 25 years of special operations, and you never mentioned this during your background check." Marcus smiled. "Ma'am, the background check asked about criminal history and driving record. It didn't ask about military service classifications that are still partially sealed." Detective Rodriguez approached, notebook in hand. "Mr. Thompson, I need to get your statement about today's events. But first, I have to ask, how did a school bus driver execute a textbook hostage rescue operation?" "Muscle memory, detective," Marcus replied. "Some things you never forget, even when you try to." The detective studied him carefully. "The kidnappers are saying you knew exactly where they were heading, that you somehow trapped them in that warehouse complex. How did you know the layout so well?" Marcus had been expecting this question. "I worked security consulting for several years after my military retirement, before I became a bus driver. I knew the industrial district's layout from those contracts." It was true, though incomplete. What Marcus didn't mention was that he'd maintained detailed knowledge of potential security threats throughout Millfield for the entire duration of his bus driving career. Old habits. Within hours, the story had attracted regional media attention. Retired Special Forces operator rescues child while working as school bus driver was a kind of human interest story that news outlets couldn't resist. Marcus found himself reluctantly fielding interview requests, most of which he politely declined. He hadn't sought publicity during his military career, and he certainly didn't want it now. But there was one interview he couldn't avoid. Sarah's parents, the Martinez family, had requested a private meeting at their home. Marcus arrived that evening, still wearing his bus driver uniform, carrying a small gift, a new backpack to replace the one that had been lost during the morning's events. Mr. Thompson, Sarah's father said, shaking his hand with obvious emotion, "I don't know how to thank you for bringing our daughter home." "No thanks necessary, Mr. Martinez," Marcus replied. "It's what any decent person would have done." Sarah appeared from the kitchen, looking much more like her normal self. "Mr. Marcus, did you bring my new backpack?" Marcus knelt down and presented the bright purple backpack with a smile. "I did indeed, sweetheart. This one has extra pockets for all your important things." As Sarah examined her new backpack with delight, her mother asked the question Marcus had been dreading. "Mr. Thompson, Sarah has been asking questions about what happened today. She knows you saved her, but she's also asking about why you moved differently, spoke differently. How do I explain to an 8-year-old that her bus driver is actually a war hero?" Marcus considered this carefully. "Mrs. Martinez, I'd suggest telling her the truth, but in a way she can understand. Sometimes grown-ups have jobs that teach them special skills. When someone needs help, especially a child, those skills come back. The important thing for Sarah to understand is that she was never really in danger because there are people whose job it is to protect children." Sarah looked up from her backpack. "Will you still be my bus driver tomorrow, Mr. Marcus?" Marcus felt a pang of something he couldn't quite identify. "Actually, sweetheart, today was my last day as a bus driver. I'm retiring, but I'll still be around Millfield, and if you ever need anything, you can always find me." "But who's going to drive our bus?" "The school district will find someone new," Marcus assured her. "Someone who will take just as good care of you and all your friends." What he didn't say was that he'd already spoken with Principal Martinez about personally vetting and training his replacement. Epilogue. The new normal 6 months later, Marcus Thompson had settled into retirement, though it looked different than he'd originally planned. Word of his background had spread quietly through Millfield's veteran community, and he found himself consulting on security issues for the school district and occasionally guest lecturing at the local police academy. Sarah Martinez remained one of his most frequent visitors. She would ride her bicycle to his house on weekends, always eager to hear Mr. Marcus stories, carefully edited versions of his military experiences that emphasized teamwork, problem-solving, and protecting others. "Tell me again about the time you had to rescue people in the mountains," Sarah would say, settling into her favorite chair in Marcus's living room. Marcus would smile and begin another tale of ordinary soldiers doing extraordinary things, always emphasizing that the real heroes were the teams who worked together to accomplish missions. The new bus driver for Route 47 was a retired Navy petty officer named Jennifer Walsh, someone Marcus had personally recommended and trained. The transition had been smooth, and the children had adapted well, though several still asked when Mr. Marcus the hero would come visit. Marcus preferred his new role as Mr. Marcus the storyteller. One afternoon, while Sarah was visiting, she asked a question that caught him off guard. "Mr. Marcus, do you miss being a soldier?" Marcus paused in his reading and looked at her seriously. "You know what, Sarah? I spent 25 years being a soldier, and it was important work. But the 6 years I spent being your bus driver taught me something new." "What's that?" "I learned that protecting children isn't just a job for soldiers. It's something every grown-up should do, every single day. Bus drivers, teachers, parents, police officers, we're all part of the same mission." Sarah nodded solemnly. "To keep kids safe." "Exactly. And that mission never ends, even when you retire." As Sarah rode her bicycle home that evening, Marcus reflected on the unexpected turn his retirement had taken. He'd planned to spend his days quietly, perhaps taking up woodworking or gardening. Instead, He discovered that some callings never truly end. They just evolve into new forms of service. His phone rang, displaying a number he recognized from the school district. "Mr. Thompson," came Principal Martinez's voice. "I know you're retired, but we have a situation developing at Roosevelt Elementary. Someone made threats against the school, and the police think it might be connected to a domestic dispute involving one of our students. Would you be willing to consult on security protocols?" Marcus looked out his window at the peaceful suburban street, where children played in their yards under the watchful eyes of parents who trusted that their community was safe. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said, because Captain Thompson understood something that would never change. The mission to protect children never ends. It just finds new forms. And sometimes, the most important battles are fought not in distant countries, but on school bus routes in small towns where heroes wear name tags instead of uniforms and carry lunch boxes instead of weapons, until the day comes when they need to be something more.